Okay, so I want to kick off this deep dive with a prediction that has been really ringing in my ears all year. In 2024, Elon Musk projected that within, what, 2 decades, we could have a truly workless society, a future where machines do almost everything and, work becomes optional, it sounds. Well, either utopian or terrifying, depending on the day you ask me.
It is, yeah. It's a really compelling narrative. But our sources suggest that focus is, frankly, misleading, or at least it's misdiagnosing the main threat here.
Oh, how
The
so?
real challenge isn't that AI is going to eliminate all work. Not really. It's that AI is designed to cause this deep social fragmentation. It
Yeah.
happens through a really targeted process the experts are calling labor market hollowing.
Hollowing. Wow, that sounds
Mm,
that
yeah.
sounds way more insidious than just simple replacement.
It is because it's so structural and targeted. So our mission today is to give you, the listener, a shortcut, a way to get past the myth of total replacement and really understand the evidence-based proactive responses we need right now.
And the sources are already seeing this happen, this splitting.
Absolutely. The workforce is already fracturing into three, well, pretty distinct segments. You've got the AI augmented superworkers at the top, then you have the human essential service providers, and then there's this vast, potentially marginalized middle tier. Those are the people facing real structural displacement.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's start with how AI is actually dividing the labor market right now, not just, wiping it clean. What makes this wave of mechanization so different from, say, the Industrial Revolution?
The difference is the target. It's what's being automated. In the past, mechanization hit physical jobs, sure, but it also created whole new categories of cognitive and supervisory work.
Right.
This AI revolution is a whole different ballgame because it excels specifically at routine cognitive tasks.
Okay, so what does that mean in practice?
Think about standardized data processing or basic financial analysis, or even just drafting the first version of a standard legal document.
Yeah.
These were the bedrock tasks of middle-class, middle-wage, white-collar jobs.
So it's not automating the factory floor anymore, it's automating the spreadsheet and the intake form, which, to be honest, is where I spent half my early career. That stings a little.
And that's what creates this predictable pattern of polarization. The middle skill, middle wage jobs, they shrink drastically because their core tasks are digitized.
So what's left? What grows?
Two ends of the spectrum. The high skill, abstract, creative roles, the people who use the AI tools, and then the low skill, embodied interpersonal service roles. Think elder care, complex plumbing, jobs where physical and relational complexity just makes automation uneconomical for now.
And this squeezes the middle and has these huge social consequences. You mentioned a stipend class. That sounds harsh. What exactly do the sources mean by that?
They use that term to emphasize a sense of structural permanence. It's not temporary unemployment. It describes a population that relies mainly on transfer income stipends because their skills are no longer valued by the market at a livable wage.
And the consequences go way beyond just losing a paycheck.
Way beyond. It's profound psychological stress, a real disruption of identity, status loss. Because historically, work is what gives us social structure and a sense of purpose. When you remove that, it puts a significant strain on social cohesion.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me. Even with AI expanding everywhere, the sources identify these human essential domains where automation just isn't taking hold. People are actively choosing a human.
They are, and it's a choice rooted in values, not just what's technically possible. There was a 2024 study cited in the material, and it found that 80% of people felt healthcare providers and judges should remain exclusively human.
And why is that? Trust.
Trust, accountability, and ethical judgment. Exactly. When the stakes are really high, a life-altering diagnosis, a criminal sentence, we demand an identifiable human who bears responsibility, even if an algorithm is statistically more accurate.
Yeah, you can't outsource accountability to a black box. Which brings us to the organizational level. Companies are facing this choice right now, aren't they? Do they go for total replacement or do they try for strategic collaboration?
That is the strategic fork in the road.
Yeah.
Full automation versus strategic augmentation. And the evidence really suggests augmentation is the superior path, especially in knowledge-heavy fields. It preserves that institutional knowledge and, crucially, it addresses that customer preference for human judgment we were just talking about.
Okay, let's see it in action. The JP Morgan Chase example often gets used as a headline for job cuts, but how do the sources frame it as successful augmentation?
Well, they used AI for contract analysis. It reduced something like 360,000 hours of annual attorney time down to seconds.
Wow.
But here's the essential part. They retained the lawyers. They redeployed them. They had them focus on Complex interpretation, negotiation strategy, client relationships. The AI does the tedious part, and the human focuses on the high-value, non-routine advisory work.
So it shifts the content of the job. It makes the remaining work more strategic, I guess.
It shifts where the expertise is most valuable. We see a really powerful parallel at the Mayo Clinic. They use AI to analyze imaging scans and flag abnormalities very, very quickly. But a human radiologist reviews every finding. They make the final call by integrating the AI's insights with the patient's actual history and clinical presentation.
A hybrid approach.
Exactly. And that hybrid approach consistently improves diagnostic accuracy beyond what either the machine or the doctor could do alone.
And we see that same kind of division of labor in manufacturing too, right? Where you still need a physical presence.
Yes, think of a company like Siemens doing quality control. They combine computer vision systems with human inspectors. The AI does the initial screening for defects,
Yeah.
which reduces human fatigue, but it flags anything suspicious for a detailed human examination. That preserves human judgment for the ambiguous cases where context and nuance are everything.
So the common thread here seems to be intentional design. You can't just drop a new AI tool on someone's desk and expect magic.
Absolutely not. Effective augmentation requires really intentional work design. You need clear task division, good human-AI interfaces, and this is critical, robust override mechanisms. These prevent what researchers call automation complacency. They keep the human in charge of ultimate judgment and accountability.
Okay, so if the middle tier is being hollowed out and the jobs that are left require constant evolution, organizations have a massive responsibility for reskilling then. They can't just wait for people to show up already trained.
They can't. Displacement means organizations have to invest in structured reskilling before the job is lost. And it's not just a favor. It's about mitigating social costs and preserving their own institutional knowledge.
Amazon's Career Choice program is always the big example here.
It is. Amazon knows automation will eliminate a lot of warehouse roles, so they pre-fund employee education in high-demand fields like IT or healthcare, even if those jobs have nothing to do with Amazon's business.
So is that true organizational responsibility or just savvy PR, a way to offload future costs?
It's probably a bit of both. But for legacy companies, the internal commitment is often sharper. Look at AT&T's Workforce 2020 initiative. They were facing the obsolescence of old telecom roles. So they invested over $1 billion to retrain 100,000 employees in areas like data analytics and cybersecurity.
And did it work?
It did. 70% of those people moved into new internal roles. The key was being transparent about which jobs were at risk and then providing credible internal career paths.
So this is moving beyond just training into something more dynamic, like job crafting.
Exactly that. Instead of a job being a rigid list of tasks you automate one by one, you enable employees to reshape their own roles. At Microsoft, they encourage engineers to use AI for things like routine code review. That freed them up for higher-level system architecture and strategic thinking. It emphasizes uniquely human strengths.
So if augmentation is the key here, it means the skills we need are changing, and education has to catch up, not just for pros, but for everyone.
That's the leap to what's called distributed AI literacy. To avoid that social bifurcation, the huge gap between the augmented elite and everyone else, we need universal AI literacy.
And what does that mean? It's not just learning how to use a chatbot.
No, not at all. It means teaching people how to test for algorithmic bias, understanding what an ethical override mechanism is, knowing when human judgment absolutely has to supersede a machine's recommendation. And programs at places like MIT show this is achievable at scale, even down to the middle school level.
Okay, that covers individual and organizational responses. But when we zoom out to the societal level, the displacement issue forces a really fundamental question. What do we do when the market just fails to value the skills of that potential stipend class at a livable wage?
We have to look at safety net innovations. The sources provide really critical contrasting data on UBI, Universal Basic Income versus Job Guarantee programs. Let's start with UBI.
All right, the Finland experiment is probably the most famous one. What was the big finding there?
The Finnish trial gave 2,000 unemployed people an unconditional monthly stipend. The results: improved well-being, less stress, more trust in institutions. But employment rates did not increase significantly, and that really challenged the core idea that unconditional income automatically leads to more work.
But the Stockton, California experiment turned out a little differently, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Stockton gave $500 a month to low-income residents. They saw less depression, less income volatility, and, this is the key part, increased full-time employment.
Wow, so why the different result?
The insight here isn't just about income. It's that stability buys agency. The recipients had the breathing room to search for dignity, not just survival. They could hold out for a better job, a more suitable one, instead of grabbing the first low-quality position just to make rent.
Okay, so that stability can lead to better job matching. That's fascinating. Now, how does that contrast with the job guarantee alternative?
Job guarantee programs are all about preserving that employment-based identity. Argentina's YEFE's program, for example, employed 2 million people during a crisis. It cut poverty, maintained social connection. The consistent concern, though, is job quality, the risk of creating a class of government make-work jobs that don't offer real development.
So the crux of the issue, no matter which safety net model you look at, really seems to be about identity. If the system gives you income but not work, where does meaning come from?
That is the essential psychological variable. Work has always given us not just money, but, social connection, a schedule, a collective purpose, self-worth. So if someone is getting a stipend, the critical question becomes, can they construct meaningful activities and identities outside of a job? And we can't just assume that purpose will magically appear.
This leads perfectly into our final section, the psychological contract. That traditional deal between a worker and an employer, loyalty and effort for long-term security, is just fundamentally broken by AI. People know their role can be automated. That has to breed cynicism. It's completely undermined. So the emerging alternative contract, it shifts. It shifts from promising employment security to promising employability security.
Employability security. So the company commits to keeping your skills sharp, keeping you marketable, even if your current role won't exist next year.
Precisely. It's a commitment to mutual evolution. Look at a place like Pixar. They explicitly hire for learning capacity. They expect both the company and the employee to transform together. Or Patagonia. Their contract is centered on their environmental mission. That mission provides the stability and meaning, even as the specific job tasks change with technology.
So if that core work contract is changing, and we need to find meaning outside traditional jobs for this stipend class,
Yeah.
what other institutions can provide that purpose at scale?
We need to professionalize non-market sources of purpose. The sources suggest things like expanding national service programs like AmeriCorps that offers purposeful activity and skill development in high-value areas like disaster relief or education, totally disconnected from private market profit incentives. And focusing on the care economy seems like an obvious one, inherently purpose-driven.
Absolutely. Professionalizing care, work child care, elder care, creates these intrinsically meaningful roles where human empathy and physical presence are non-negotiable. And the demand is guaranteed because of demographics. If society invests in training and compensation, you turn precarious labor into quality, purpose-driven employment.
And finally, civic participation, giving people a tangible role in their own communities.
Yes, guaranteed income could free people up for vastly expanded participation in community governance, in voluntary associations. It could revitalize our civic infrastructure. It's all about creating structures that provide social prestige for contributions other than just a high salary.
That's a huge shift in focus. Okay, so let's summarize the core takeaway for you, the listener. The workless future is probably a myth. But the bifurcated future, this dramatic split in opportunity and social standing, that is a very genuine risk, and it requires deliberate action right now.
And that action really breaks down into 3 imperatives detailed in the sources. First, organizations have to aggressively invest in augmentation infrastructure and capability development now. Second, we all have to renegotiate psychological contracts honestly, promise continuous development, not false job security.
And third, society needs to urgently experiment with institutional innovations for meaning and belonging outside of employment like national service and professionalizing the care economy.
So the central challenge, then, isn't whether society can afford economic security for the displaced. The evidence suggests we probably can. It's whether our existing political and cultural frameworks can adapt quickly enough to handle such a profound transformation while still preserving human agency and meaning. And that is a question you should be mulling over as you step into this new future of work.